Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the Dark Empire in the Akatsuki? Part 1. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. Naruto sobbed as he sat atop of his one safe place, having been ignored by his parents so that they could train his sister Naruko, who they claimed to be the child of prophecy. Ever since the night of the Kyuubi attack, when the Sandaime Hokage had sacrificed himself to seal the giant fox inside of his sister, his father and mother doted on the girl, always saying that she needed to be ready for the decisive days when she would change the world. This led to Naruto being ignored by not only his parents, but by just about everyone. A few hours earlier he had gone to his father and asked if he would help him with his academy jutsu practice, but the older blonde had told him no, saying that he was going to be taking Naruto out to train and work on some more jutsu. His mother had also said that she would be going with and just brushed off Naruto. "Why do they always ignore me?" he sobbed. "Who does?" a voice asked from behind him. Jumping, Naruto turned to see a person standing there wearing all black, with an orange mask with only a single eye opening on the left side of the mask. "My parents," Naruto stated cautiously. The person nodded as he walked over and sat next to the blonde. "I see. You're Naruto, aren't you?" he asked, causing him to nod. "I know about you. I've been keeping an eye on the Yondaime for some time now, and I see how he and Kushina treat you. It isn't fair, is it?" "No, why do they always pay attention to Naruko?" "Because they have made a mistake in thinking that she will one day change the world," the man replied, "but I think they are wrong." "You do?" "Yes. I think that you are the special one. You don't have any of those gifts that she does, yet you work so hard and try your best in everything. That is something special that should be embraced by everyone, not ignored for some girl that has a demon inside of her." "What demon?" Naruto asked. The man then told him about the attack of the Kyuubi and how Naruto was the one to have the demon sealed inside of her. "But just because she has some extra help doesn't mean that she is the child of prophecy," the man stated. "I guess," Naruto muttered. "Tell me, Naruto, do you know the story of the wolves and fox?" he asked. "No. The story goes that there was a small and clever fox that got trapped by a pack of big strong wolves. These wolves made the fox hunt for them and bring them food, making them start to get lazy while the fox got stronger and stronger. It took some time, but soon the fox was able to escape from the wolves that had gotten fat and lazy, while the fox was now strong and fast. The moral of the story is that if you work hard you can do anything." "Wow, I want to be like that fox." Naruto smiled. "Maybe you can be little fox. Tomorrow is the festival for the Kyuubi's defeat and the birthday party for your sister, right?" "Yeah, it is," Naruto nodded. "Come back here tomorrow night, and I will help you escape this den of wolves." The man promised. "Come back here tomorrow, and I will help you get strong. Come back here tomorrow, and I will care for you from now on." Naruto started to smile and nodded his agreement. "Okay. I'll be back tomorrow night, Tobi." Tobi nodded as the blonde nodded his agreement and ran off from the top of the monument back to his home, while Tobi watched, knowing that what had just set in motion would change the entire world. That night Naruto began his packing, getting what gear he was going to need in order to leave and make sure that he would be able to survive. As he planned, he decided that, since he was leaving, he might as well take something useful from his parents, as a final way of sticking his nose up at them for the way they had treated him. The next day his parents and his sister went out to do some shopping for the party, leaving Naruto alone just like he had wanted. He soon had the lock picked on the family library and grabbed the scroll of sealing that Minato had made and only let Kushina and Naruto look at. Naruto, however, had watched his father go into the scroll countless times and made sure to disable the security seal on it and then placed it by his pack. He then went to the armory, where he started taking several of the weapons, including his mother's sword Akarip, Red Ripper, and making sure to remove his father's Horatian seal from all of the items. Once he was packed, he waited until dusk when the party was in full swing, and he was sure no one would notice him missing. Naruto slipped away into the darkness, with the only one noticing that he had left at all was a young heiress to the Hyuga clan. "There you are," Tobi stated as he saw Naruto approach, carrying a large pack with various items including a large scroll and a blood-red katana. "I see you brought some things." "Just some stuff to help make me stronger or to live with," Naruto replied with a large grin. Tobi nodded and motioned for Naruto to follow him as they started to walk. By the time Tobi agreed to stop, it was dawn, and they were quite a distance away from Konohagakure no Sato. "Now I'm going to tell you a few things while we rest," Tobi began as Naruto nodded. "What we are going to do is head for a group of people that I have been gathering called the Akatsuki. There we can start training you and make you stronger." "Are the Akatsuki strong?" Naruto asked. "All of them are S rank," Tobi promised, "and one of them has eyes that were once the same eyes that the Rakuto Sennin had." Naruto's eyes widened at this, and he waited for Tobi to continue. We have plenty of very strong people that will train you, and this way you will never be looked down on by anyone. Naruto had stars in his eyes as he listened to Tobi, and soon his masked friend told him it was time to get going again. It was several hours past dawn when Minato finally noticed that Naruto was missing. "Kushina, have you seen Naruto?" he shouted. "No." She shouted back, "I haven't seen him since last night." Minato frowned at this. He didn't spend much time with a blonde, but he always at least saw his son at some point during the day. He walked up to his room and opened the door to see that the bed was made and that there was very little sign that he was ever in this room. Minato searched around the house for Naruto, but after not finding him, he decided that he must have gone over to a friend's house. A few hours later he went to the library to look through his scroll and decide what to work on next with Naruto when he saw that it was gone. "Kushina," he shouted as he found his wife. "Someone has taken the scroll of sealing." Kushina's eyes widened at this, and they next went to the armory where they found that Akarip was gone as well. They soon had an ambush squad searching the village for the possible perpetrator and any sign as to where the items had gone, but to no avail. At night they realized that Naruto was gone as well. They searched for him throughout the village, but found that there was no sign of him. Minato had no choice then but to gather the Anbu and have them spread the search beyond Konoha's borders. Search the area, the entire border of Hai no Kuni. Find Naruto and bring him back. He may have been kidnapped by an enemy village. Odds are that they also took the items that we have found missing from my household as well. Minato ordered. "Hi Hokage-sama." The Anbu nodded as disappeared. However, by this time Naruto and Tobi were already over the border and entering Aim no Kuni. The blonde was shocked by the constant rain that the country had and was shocked at how much water there was. Soon Tobi led him to a group of 3 people. One was a man with orange hair and black piercings sticking out of his face. His eyes were purple ripples, and he seemed odd to Naruto. The next was a blue-haired woman who had an origami flower in her hair and looked at Naruto cautiously. The last was the most unusual of the 3. He looked like he was being eaten by a Venus flytrap, and his body was half white and the other half black. The black half had a completely yellow eye and no mouth, while the white one had a green eye and a visible mouth. "Naruto, meet the people that will be helping to look after you while I am away," Tobi explained. "The orange-haired man is the vessel for the true man with the Rinnegan, Nagato." The man nodded calmly. "The young lady is his friend Konan. And the last is Zetsu, a literal split personality." "Cool." Naruto grinned as Zetsu just chuckled, in 2 different voices. "Why have you brought him here, Tobi?" Konan asked. "He is going to be a valuable assist one day. This is the true child of prophecy," Tobi replied. "Is he now?" Nagato asked calmly. "What makes you so sure?" "Call it a hunch." Tobi replied, "Like my hunch about how things would play out here a long time ago." Nagato simply nodded and Zetsu spoke up. "So what can he do?" the white one asked. "Is he strong?" the black half continued. "He has potential, and he brought with him some very interesting items." Tobi smirked as Naruto set down the scroll and the katana. "Those are items from Konohagakure." Konan noted. "They belong to the Hokage and his wife. And he is their ignored son." Tobi replied. "I see. Then you are Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. A distant relation." Nagato noted. "I too am from the Uzumaki clan." "So we're related?" Naruto asked with a grin. "We are. I will help you train and be strong as well, cousin," Nagato promised. "I will too." Konan smiled as she looked at him. "He will be quite powerful when he gets older. I guess I can help too." "Of course we will help." "Excellent. Now Naruto, you need to do what they say. I have important things to do and people to recruit." Nagato, "Get Kisame to help him learn Kenjutsu. Might as well help him learn to use what he took," Tobi ordered. "I will inform him." Nagato nodded as Tobi looked at Naruto. "Now you be a good boy for them, and I will see you again soon," Tobi promised. "Okay." Naruto nodded as Tobi turned and left, while Konan kneeled next to him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Come on, you must be exhausted. Let's find you a room and you can get some sleep. Tomorrow we will see what you can do and help you be strong," Konan promised. "Right." Naruto grinned as he followed the 3 into Aim. The next day Nagato and Konan took Naruto to a training ground, where they had him do various exercises, and had him perform every jutsu that he had learned. It wasn't much, but he proved to be at the average level. "We have a lot of work to do," Nagato stated as he took out a scroll and handed it to Naruto. "I want you to learn a jutsu from here every month. The first few are easy, but they get progressively harder. Also, since you cannot seem to use a standard bunshin, I want you to go into the scroll of sealing and learn the Kage bunshin. This will serve multiple purposes." "Nodded Nagato-sensei." Naruto nodded. "Okay Naruto. I'm going to be helping you learn the knowledge aspect of being a shinobi," Konan explained, "because you can't just be all brawn with no brains." "Right." Naruto nodded as Conan had him sit while she started with various practical aspects of being a shinobi and different bits of knowledge that he would need. Naruto found that this was rather difficult for him at times, but Conan was a patient teacher and wouldn't move on to the next subject until he had learned what she had wanted him to. Once they finished, they stood up and saw that there was a blue-skinned man approaching that looked like a shark, carrying a massive bandaged-up sword on his back, along with 2 practice swords. "So this is the brat that he wants me to train?" he asked. "This is him." Nagato nodded. "Naruto, this is Kisame, your Kenjutsu instructor." "Nice to meet you." Naruto bowed. Yeah. Kisame chuckled as he tossed him the practice blade. "Let's see what you got." Naruto held the blade like he had seen his mother hold it when teaching Naruto and moved forward, swinging the blade at Kisame, who blocked it easily enough, but let Naruto continue the barrage of attacks, and smirked that someone who had only seen this much and had never actually done any training himself could do this well. It was a few moments before Kisame blocked another swing and then stepped forward and disarmed Naruto with a smirk. "You got some talent, and you seem to have watched some good people. But here is where I start pushing you to the point where you could eventually become a swordsman of my caliber." Kisame chuckled as Naruto felt very worried. The rest of the afternoon was spent working with Kisame, who worked Naruto to the bone, straight to the point where he couldn't walk, and Conan had to carry him back to his room, where she laid him down on the bed and made sure that he ate some soup that she had brought to him. "Is this what it's going to be like every day?" Naruto asked. "At first." Conan nodded. "But things will get better." "Really?" Naruto asked. "Yes. Soon you won't be so tired after training and will be able to walk back on your own, and the training will get tougher and tougher. Soon you will be a force to be reckoned with once you manage to complete your training." Conan smiled. Naruto only grinned as he ate some more before falling asleep. Conan only smiled as she tucked him in and walked out, letting the blonde rest. Back in Konoha, Minato was worried about Naruto. He had received various reports from Anbu that Naruto was nowhere to be found and that they couldn't seem to locate him at all. What was worse was that they were no closer to figuring out which direction that he had gone in or where those valuable items had gone to either. Minato sighed as he read through another note and then walked out of the room, only to find Jiraiya waiting for him. "Minato," he stated. "Jiraiya-sensei." Minato sighed. "I heard Naruto is missing," Jiraiya stated bluntly. "He is. I don't know where he went to," Minato explained. "And how is that possible?" "He's your son," Jiraiya exclaimed, shocking Minato. "You should be looking after him." "I do," Minato shouted back. "Is that so? Then how is it that a 5-year-old boy managed to take both the scroll of sealing and Akarip and managed to slip away without so much as a trace?" Jiraiya asked. "He must have been taken," Minato stated. "By who?" "Kiri. They are too busy fighting themselves to do that." "Kumo. They haven't tried anything since you made it perfectly clear that another kidnapping would end with another war." "Iwa. They're too terrified of you to even enter High no Kuni half the time." "Suna. They would more likely kill the boy and leave him as a message to you. Some other small country. They would have left a ransom." Jiraiya listed off. "It's more likely that he ran off while you focused so much on Naruto." Minato blinked at this and was about to respond when Jiraiya cut him off. "I've been back for a few days now, and I've seen how you treat Naruto. You completely ignore him so you can train your daughter. It sickens me to see the way you treated your son, the way you ignored the boy you named after the character from my first book. You have disappointed me, Minato." Minato now looked down in shame as he realized the truth of his teacher's words. He had focused so much on Naruto, thinking that she was the child of destiny, but he had neglected Naruto, and now it was possible that he would be unable to remedy that mistake. "Do you know what has happened to him?" Minato asked. "No, I don't." Jiraiya sighed. "I went to meet an informant that night and wasn't around for the party. But that is obviously when Naruto slipped away. Ask around and see who noticed him leave. You might get a lead from there." Minato nodded at this and soon had his Anbu going to all the party guests to try and find out what had happened the night of the party. It didn't take long to find out that Hinata had seen Naruto leave, heading towards the Hokage monument, and he soon had a tracking team up there, searching for him. They managed to find his scent and another person's as well, and they were soon following the trail, all the way to the border where Naruto had crossed, and was now beyond Minato's reach. "I have failed," Minato sighed. They were soon heading back to the village where Minato would now have to tell his wife that their son had left the country and was God's knew where, with God's knew who. For all they knew, he might be dead. Minato felt shame at his actions and knew the Kushina would as well, knowing that they had driven their only son to run off. A year later and Naruto was now standing at the level of a genin, having trained diligently over the months, working hard to master all of the techniques that Nagato had given him. Conan had also drilled more knowledge into him, so he could now state different facts about different countries with ease, along with various facts about the wars and important figures from various villages' histories. Setsu had taught Naruto about how to survive in the wilderness and the better aspects of espionage, teaching the young blonde to be a sneaky bastard and learn all that his enemies did before they learned anything about him. Isum had kept up with the Kenjutsu training, and now Naruto could last a few minutes in a spar against the older nin, while still being able to walk back to his room. During this time there had been 2 new members joining. Bikuzu, a man that had taken interest in the blonde and helped him with his ninjutsu practice, and even helped him work on his chakra control. The other was Sasori, who looked like a young boy and started teaching Naruto about poisons and puppets. Sasori-sensei, I'm not very good at this, Naruto complained as he tried to work the puppet Sasori had given him. It's fine. This is a complex skill. It requires great amounts of chakra control and lots of patience. However, this is also good for chakra control and teaching you how the different puppets work so you can handle a fight against any puppet master from my former village. Sasori explained as he had Naruto continue his work. During this year Naruto had seen Tobi several times and he always brought back a gift for the blonde, giving him sweets sometimes, or new kunai and shurikens. At the moment the masked man said he was going to be away for a time while he settled some unfinished business in Konohagakure. Naruto was worried about his friend, but was certain that Tobi would be fine. It wasn't long before another person joined their group, this one recruited by Nagato. Kukuku. So you're Naruto-kun. Orochimaru laughed as he saw the blonde working on his water walking exercise. Yeah. Who are you? Naruto asked, gripping a kunai. My name is Orochimaru. I am a new member of the Akatsuki. Leader Sama said that it would be in my best interest to train you. Orochimaru chuckled as he looked at the blonde and could easily tell his parentage. I too used to live in Konohagakure no Sato. Would you leave? Naruto asked. I was wronged. I was denied the title of the Yondaime Hokage, given to your father instead. Then my former teacher had the nerve to run me out while I worked on experiments to make one stronger. Stronger? Naruto asked with a grin. Now Orochimaru had to grin as he realized that he had hooked the blonde and could now begin his experiments anew. Yes. Perhaps you might be interested in this? Orochimaru asked. Yeah. Naruto nodded as Orochimaru motioned for the blonde to follow him so that they could begin. Naruto's screams ripped through the Akatsuki base, shocking both Konan and Nagato, who had all of his bodies heading for the source. They found Orochimaru's room and the blonde strapped to a table, while being injected by something. Orochimaru. Konan shouted as she sent a storm of paper to separate the man from the young shinobi. What do you think you are doing? Helping him? Orochimaru chuckled. He agreed to this experiment. Did he? Nagato's diva body asked with a glare. He did. Orochimaru promised. When the serum is done feel free to ask him. It took several minutes but finally the serum stopped and Naruto ceased screaming in pain. When he opened his eyes they had changed from the cerulean orbs to red irises with the whites now black. Konan gasped at the change and Naruto looked at her and smiled. It's okay Konan-sensei. Orochimaru helped me get stronger. Naruto chuckled as Konan got him down. What have you done? Nagato asked Orochimaru. A new serum. This one brings out the latent potential in the person, unleashing their full strength. However, I have had to add another serum that will help heal the person, since this much power would shorten the lifespan, and I am certain that Naruto would like to live for some time. Orochimaru chuckled. I have various other serums as well, that I am sure that Naruto might be interested in. I need time to recover. Naruto replied, but I want more. Konan and Nagato traded looks, but knew that the blonde would not be denied. Konan then took Naruto back to his quarters where he would rest, while Konan and Nagato informed Tobi about what had occurred. In Konohagakure Minato had thrown himself into his work, his way of trying to avoid the guilt. He had never stopped looking for Naruto, and any time that a foreign diplomat gave them a mission, he informed the team to keep an eye out for his son. So far there had been no word of Naruto, and this was more cause for concern. Kushina had taken on the full-time role of training Naruto, having her work harder than her entire class and trying to forget about Naruto as well. Come on Naruto. You need to move faster than that. Kushina chided the young blonde girl. I am trying. She panted as they started again. I'm only human. You have to be more than that. Kushina reminded her, you need to be the best you can possibly be. Naruto only sighed at this and they began going again. Naruto silently blamed Naruto for the recent change in her parents, and she hoped that he was dead for this. She hated him for not having this grueling training thrust upon him and being trained night and day. Worse, she hated him for being able to leave and do what he wanted. A week later news reached Minato that the entire Uchiha clan had been murdered by Itachi. Minato had known that there was trouble brewing with the clan, and Danzo had warned him that there might be a revolt if things didn't calm down soon. Minato had spoken with Fukaku several times, and the clan head had agreed that it would not be in the best interest of the village if things didn't settle down, but the hotheads in the Uchiha clan wouldn't seem to listen. Now it seems that Itachi had snapped and killed all of the except his brother Sasuke, who Minato now had under watch to make sure he didn't hurt himself, or someone tried to finish the job that Itachi had started. Tobi and Itachi soon arrived in the Akatsuki and found Naruto had undergone quite the change. The blonde had grown several inches, his eyes had changed and he was far stronger than Tobi remembered him being before they left. The blonde was currently sparring with Kisame and was holding his own quite well, given the fact that Kisame wasn't going all out against the blonde. Nagato, what happened? Tobi asked. Orochimaru performed experiments on Naruto. Nagato stated Naruto wanted them done and he has changed significantly. His chakra control has stabilized and his reserves are as great as my own. His taijutsu skills are increasing, and I have both myself and Kisame sparring against him regularly, though he is now roughly equal to a Chunin in ability. His ninjutsu skills have skyrocketed as well. He is mastering ninjutsu left and right and kakuzu, and I are both running out of ninjutsu to teach him. It appears that his primary affinity is for wind, but he can use the other elements easy enough to the point where you can barely tell the difference. Ninjutsu just slides right off of him, and his kenjutsu is at the point where Kisame has to take him seriously, sometimes to beat him. Tobi blinked his one eye at the status report and reminded himself to thank Orochimaru for his. Naruto's progress shocked him, but now that he had Itachi here he was certain that he could increase the blonde's training regimen twofold at least. Keep an eye on him. And work him harder. I want him to be far stronger by this time next year. Tobi ordered. For what purpose? Nagato asked. The village ignored the child of prophecy. I am simply turning that child into a monster to destroy the world. Tobi replied calmly as he walked away. It has been 10 years since Naruto had left Konohagakure no Sado, and the blonde had undergone many changes, both physical and mental. He was just shorter than Itachi now, having undergone quite a growth spurt, and his eyes were still the red and black that they had become from Orochimaru's first experiment. He had gained many things from those tests, along with some that Tobi had done as well, saying that they would help him. He had gained a healing ability equal to most Jinchuruki, a hyper-awareness of danger, so he could easily dodge attacks that even he couldn't see, and a keen sense of smell and hearing. His mind had also changed quite a bit, becoming far darker than it had ever been before, and he now saw most people as pawns, including the Akatsuki. Their goal to end war, or at least Nagato's goal, seemed foolish to him. Tobi had a different goal he knew, but he had no interest in it. The blonde was now walking through the halls, heading to meet up with Tobi who had said that he had a mission for him. The blonde wore all black, with light armor on his arms and legs, meant to be used as shields against an attack, as well as on his chest and back. He also wore the Akatsuki cloak over it all, but he didn't have one of the rings as he wasn't an official member. Over the years the lineup of the Akatsuki had changed, with Orochimaru having fled and new members joining, like Deidara and Haiden. At the moment they were mostly paired off, with Tobi being a shadow and Zetsu working alone. You wanted to see me? Naruto asked as he entered Tobi's room. Ah yes. You see I owed Orochimaru a favor for his work on you, and he has sent me a message calling it in. Tobi explained. What does he want? Naruto asked. Your help. Tobi replied as he explained that Orochimaru intended to destroy Konoha and wanted Naruto to aid him in this. And you think that this is a good idea? Naruto asked with a smirk. I don't. So I am giving you different orders. Tobi chuckled as he explained Naruto's mission and then nodded for him to leave. The blonde only nodded as he went back to his room and reclaimed Akarip, strapping the blade to his side as he left the rainy country, soon arriving at Atagakure, where Orochimaru was waiting for him. Ah Naruto-kun. I have been expecting you. He grinned. I was told that you called in your only favor left with the Akatsuki to get me here for this job of yours. Naruto remarked. Yes, but with this, you can get your revenge against Konoha as well. Orochimaru promised. He then led the boy into the underground labyrinth and to the meeting room, where there were several Odonin along with Orochimaru's personal bodyguards. Now that we are all here, let us begin. Orochimaru stated as he laid out the map. The Chunin exams will be beginning soon, that is our opening. As an official village I will be sending in one team, meant to be cannon fodder for Sasuke, once he awakens his cursed seal that I will place on him during the second exam. We won't begin the invasion until the third exam, when most of the village will be distracted by the finals. We have gained the support of Sunagakure in this, and the signal to begin will be their Jinchuruki transforming in the middle of the arena. And if he doesn't make it? Naruto asked with a snort. He will. Orochimaru replied calmly. He has never sustained an injury in all of his missions, and he has gone on some very dangerous ones. He will destroy anyone that gets in his way. Now all of you will receive different assignments on the day of the invasion, but as of now we are in the preparation stage. And what am I to do? Naruto asked. You will be entering the exam as well. You will be a team from AIM, going through the exams. Your job is to ensure that Sasuke survives the situation so that I can claim him later. Orochimaru explained. On the day of the invasion, you are free to attack what you will. Fine. I will send word back to AIM to get a background set up, Naruto replied as he walked out of the room. My lord, I do not trust him, Kimimura warned. You would be wise not to. Orochimaru replied, I only requested that he be here because he can possibly turn the tides of a bad situation. He is as strong as most members of the Akatsuki. The majority of the shinobi in the room blinked and looked at the door where the blonde had walked off, worried as to how dangerous this blonde was. It took 2 days for all the information to be established, but once it was, Naruto went on ahead with 2 henge clones to look like his 3-man cell. He took on an assumed name for this exam and had made sure to leave the Akatsuki cloak behind and take the AIM headband that Conan had sent him. As he walked back into the village, he felt a wave of nostalgia hit him as he let his gaze wander the familiar sights. It wasn't long before he heard a disturbance in a side street and decided to see what was happening. Turning down the street, he saw a young boy being held up in the air by a Sunagaker genin in a full bodysuit with a blonde girl behind him. In front of him were 2 girls, one pink-haired who Naruto quickly gauged as useless. The other was a blonde with long pigtails that Naruto immediately recognized. Put Konohamaru down, Naruto shouted at the boy. Not till I teach this shrimp some manners, the boy retorted. Kankuro, stop it. The other girl sighed as she looked at her teammate. If Gaara finds out, he will kill us. That's why I'll make this quick, Kankuro stated as he was about to punch Konohamaru. Before the fist could connect, there was a short gust of wind as Naruto had moved past the 2 girls, caught Kankuro's fist, and gripped the wrist that was holding the boy. I would put down the young boy before I lose my temper, Naruto warned as he looked at Kankuro, who blinked at the eyes and remembered the report about the S-rank nin that would be working with him with those eyes. Okay, Kankuro stated as he dropped Konohamaru and stepped back. Good. Naruto nodded as he turned to look at the nearby tree, where a redhead with a tattoo of love on his forehead and a gourd on his back stood. Enjoy the show. Yes. Who are you that is awoken mother so? He asked with a monotone. You foe in these exams. Naruto replied calmly, I hope you can meet my expectations. Gaara, the girl whispered as she stared at the teen who smirked, before disappearing in a swirl of sand. Naruto only smirked as he looked at the other 2 Sunanin who turned and quickly left. I had it under control, Naruto snarled as she glared at the newcomer. Clearly you didn't, Naruto retorted as he turned and met her gaze, shocking the 2 girls with his eyes. If you had, then I wouldn't have stepped in. Shows what you know, Naruto sniffed. Naruto, you shouldn't pick fights, the pink-haired girl said, looking kind of scared of the new guy. I'd listen to your friend. Naruto nodded as he looked at the other girl and nodded at her, raising her total worth from completely useless to mostly useless. I don't care what you say, Sakura, this punk just barged in like he owned the place, Naruto snapped. But, Sakura tried to begin. Don't both, Sakura-san. This brat likes hearing herself bark, Naruto stated with a smirk as Naruto glared at him. This is supposed to be the child of prophecy. I am disappointed. Now Naruto blinked at his statement as the boy in black left them standing there. She was confused as to how he had known about that, when only a handful of people even knew about the prophecy. Shaking her head, she decided to keep an eye on this stranger and see how things would play out during these exams. The next day the Chunin exams began and Naruto and his 2 clones entered the building, walking past a crowd of genin caught in a game jutsu. Once on the 3rd floor, Naruto opened the doors and entered the room, moving off to the side where he could observe everyone. He spotted Orochimaru, disguised as a Kusanin, using the same trick that Naruto had done with the Kage Bunshin. He then found Gaara and his teammates, staring at him with worry. Finally he picked out the Odo team that were going to be sacrificed for Orochimaru's plans. Odds were that they didn't even know what was going to happen to them, and Naruto made an effort to memorize each of their faces. One was completely wrapped in bandages, looking like a mummy. The next was a boy who looked like an arrogant bastard. The last was a girl that as Naruto looked her over he decided that she was rather cute. Showtime, Naruto shouted as she kicked the door open and walked in like she owned the place. Naruto looked at her and her teammates and smirked at them as he saw them run a gaze over the room. When Naruto spotted the blonde with the strange eyes standing with 2 other people, she moved towards them, but Sasuke stopped her. Don't be an idiot. Sasuke warned you, pick a fight here, you might get us kicked out of here. They wouldn't kick us out, Naruto retorted. Yes, they would. The proctors don't like anyone starting fights before the designated area, Sasuke stated calmly, and your parents can't do anything about it either. Naruto huffed angrily at this and just shot the blonde a glare. Sasuke simply shook his head and decided to speak with a person that irritated his teammates so much. Walking over, he stopped in front of the blonde and looked at his strange eyes that reminded him of the Sharingan. So you're the one that pissed Naruto off so much, Sasuke stated. I am. And you must be Sasuke-chan. Naruto nodded. I've heard a lot about you. You seem to have me at a disadvantage. Sasuke smirked. What should I call you? Yami. Naruto replied calmly, these are my teammates Aku and Tsumi. Pleasure. Sasuke nodded as he looked at the two raven-haired men who only nodded. So you're from AIM? Yes. Naruto nodded. We're a fresh team, and our sensei said that we should take these exams to see how we stack up against other genin our age. Not many genin in AIM? Not really. Naruto shrugged. The two small talked for a few more moments, when a platinum blonde tackle hugged the Ichigo. This me Sasuke-kun? She asked as she hugged him. Get off of him, Ino. Sakura shouted as she moved to get the girl off of her teammate. Naruto smirked at this as he saw other genin approaching. Troublesome. A pineappled hair teen sighed as he moved by Ino, with a hefty boy who was munching on a bag of chips. As lively as ever. A boy with a dog laughed as he and his team moved over by them. Kiba. Naruto smirked at the boy. I was wondering why I smelled wet dog. Hey. Kiba shouted back at the blonde girl. Kiba, please don't fight. The girl on his team begged as she looked at the other genin and stopped her gaze on Naruto. She frowned at him and seemed to almost recognize him. Before she could say anything, a boy with glasses approached. You guys sure are noisy, he stated. And who are you? Naruto asked with frown. I'm Kabuto, a veteran of these exams you could say. He smiled. How many times have you taken it? Sakura asked. This is my 8th time. Kabuto chuckled. Man, you suck. Kiba laughed. It's not that I'm bad, it's that these exams are tough. Kabuto explained, but because I've been here so often I managed to gather quite a lot of information on the other competitors. Even first-time competitors? Sasuke asked. Yep. Kabuto nodded. Give me the cards for Rock Lee, Subaku no Gaara and Yami. Sasuke stated, and Naruto smirked as he realized that Sasuke had identified him as a potential threat. Kabuto then took out the 3 cards, and they had a picture of the person, their general skills and the amount of misuns that they had taken since they had become genin. Lee was an interesting case, as he had known ninjutsu or gained jutsu skills, but made up for having exceptional taijutsu skills. Gaara had no real information except the amount of missions that he had taken, and that he had never suffered a single wound on any of his missions. Lastly was Yami, whose card only had a picture of him, and everything else was blank. What's with this? Naruto exclaimed. Sorry, but AIM has closed borders, so I haven't gotten any information on this guy really, except some rumors that I haven't been able to confirm yet. Kabuto apologized. What rumors? The girl from Kiba's team asked. Well, those eyes aren't a Kaikeke Genkai for starters. The next rumor is that he and his entire team are actually a lot higher in the skill department than Chunin, but they haven't been given a chance to test this yet. Because they are new genin. The pineapple hair boy stated. Exactly. Kabuto nodded. The last is that he murdered his previous team, and that this one was put together at the last minute. That last one isn't true. Naruto stated calmly, shocking them the others are, but that last one is false. I have been with Aku and Tsum since we were made genin a few months ago. That's so? Kabuto nodded as he added the information to the card. Care to add anything else? No. Naruto stated as he turned towards the chalkboard where a cloud of smoke appeared and then cleared with a team of Chunin standing there with a man with a black bandana and some visible scars in front of them. Alright you maggots. My name is Ibiki, and I am the proctor for the first examination. Now line up, take a number, and then take your designated seat, and then we will get to the test. Ibiki ordered. It took some time before everyone was seated, scattered around the room and away from their teammates. Naruto was sitting next to the girl that was constantly staring at him, trying to solve the mystery of who he was. Now the first test is a written exam, and this is a team event. You will each start off with 30 points, 10 for each member of the team, and for every question you get wrong, you will lose a point. The teams with the highest point values will move on to the next round. Now for some details. If a member of your team fails to answer all of the questions, then your team is out. If you are caught cheating, you will lose 2 points. There are proctors sitting around the room making sure that you little shits don't try anything. Now you have 1 hour to complete the test. Begin. Ibiki explained. The genin in the room all flipped their papers over, and Naruto read over the questions and blinked at the difficulty of them. This would be too hard for a genin team to handle, even under the best of circumstances. Naruto thought of the way that Ibiki had explained the rules and realized that they had to cheat in order to answer the questions, meaning that there were probably several Chunin scattered about the test takers with the correct answers. Smirking, Naruto just started answering the questions, already knowing most of the answers himself, and he knew that his clones would know them as well. Once he was finished answering the 9 questions, he read over the little explanation that the final question would be given 10 minutes before the end of the exam. Closing his eyes, he let his senses spread out, listening to the sounds of people writing. Opening his eyes, he saw that the girl had finished writing as well, and he smirked. "Done?" he asked. "Yes," she nodded. "Could you copy off of?" Naruto asked. "Some from a person a few rows ahead, and then the rest off of you and your team." "Not bad." Naruto smirked. "My name is Yami." "No, it isn't," she stated. "I know that much for certain, but you are using a codename." Naruto's smirk turned into an amused smile as he nodded at her. "True as that is, Yami is all you're going to get out of me. Hinata Hyuga. Hinata-chan." Naruto smirked as he saw a light blush come on her face. It wasn't long before teams were getting eliminated, and then finally Ibiki was prepared to give them the last question. This last question comes with the option of whether or not you take it. Ibiki began. "If you chose not to, you and your team will leave this exam now." "Then why would we chose not to take it then?" a genin asked. "Because if you get this question wrong, you and your entire team will remain genin forever." Ibiki replied curtly as many of the genin started shouting that this wasn't fair and that he couldn't do that. "I can do this, and for those that have taken Thai's exam before. Well, I guess they never had me as a proctor before. So what will you all do?" Naruto smirked at this and leaned back in his seat as Hinata looked a little worried, but in the end she didn't raise her hand to be removed. Several teams left at this point, and once all was finished there were still 22 teams left. Ibiki glanced over the room and in the end nodded his head. "Very well then. For those of you that remain, you pass." Ibiki smiled, shocking all of them. "Let me explain. The 10th question was the test itself. If you become a chunin and are asked to lead a mission where you don't know where exactly your objective is, how many enemies there are between you and it, or the possible traps and defensive features that are made between you and it, do you take it or wait for a safer mission? You take it. There are no safe missions for a shinobi, and anyone that would rather wait for the guarantee instead of taking the chance on the mission doesn't deserve to be a chunin." "Then what was the point of the questions?" Naruto asked. "That was to test your information gathering skills. Almost none of you should have been able to answer those questions, so we had chunin scattered about the room with the correct answers for those of you that were clever enough to find them." Ibiki explained. "This is because sometimes the right information or false information can change the entire mission." Ibiki then removed the bandana, revealing the torture marks on him. Naruto stared intently at this and nodded his respect for a man that could suffer such damage and still go on as a shinobi. "To all of you that have passed, I congratulate you and wish you luck. Your next proctor is..." Ibiki was about to finish when the glass was burst open by a black bundle flying in. Just as it was about to reach the center of the room, 4 kunai shot out, pinning the corners of it up, revealing a banner and a woman standing there. The banner read Anko Mitarashi in big kanji, while below it in smaller ones it read Sexy Kunoichi. "Alright, don't celebrate just yet. I'm Anko Mitarashi, your second proctor for this exam." Anko shouted as she started counting the teams and turned to look at Ibiki. 22 teams left. "You are slipping. We have some exceptional genin this year." Ibiki replied calmly. "HMPH. Well, by the time my test is over I'll cut their numbers in half." Anko smirked as the teams all looked scared, with the exception of a few individuals. "Now come on and follow me." It wasn't long before all the genin were standing outside of a massive gated wood, with trees as tall as some of the buildings that Naruto had seen in AIM. "Welcome to Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death." Anko grinned as several genin shuddered in fear while others just stared at her, waiting for her to get to the point. "Now this exam is a survival exam. For 5 days you all will be locked in here, trying to complete your objective." "And what might that be?" a genin asked. "Glad you asked, shit stain." Anko smiled as she held up 2 scrolls, one read heaven and the other earth. "Now all you have to do is this: each team will be given a scroll to carry on them, and during the 5 days they must get the other scroll that will match theirs and get to the tower in the center of the forest. Now some general rules are this: you and your entire team must arrive at the tower, no exceptions. Do not open your scroll before you get to the tower, and finally try to stay alive." "So we're allowed to kill in there?" Naruto asked with a grin. "Yep, go right ahead. But it's not only the other teams that you need to watch out for. There are plenty of wildlife in there that would love to munch on some tasty genin like yourselves. There are also plenty of poisonous plants as well, so be cautious," Anko explained. "But what about food?" the hefty kid from Ino's team shouted. "The forest has plenty of food for the experienced outdoorsman." Anko replied. "Now all we need for you to do before you get your scroll is to fill out these liability waivers." Soon chunin assistants were handing out sheets of paper, and Naruto and his team were one of the first to sign theirs and walk up to Anko to hand them in. Once they were finished they were allowed to get into a line, where they received a random scroll, where no one could see them, and then assigned a gate number, where they were to start off at. It took a few minutes for everyone to get their scroll, and then get to their gate. Once there, Anko gave them the go-ahead over a PA system and they were off into the woods. Naruto smirked as he stopped and nodded for the clones to move on ahead, as he stopped and started to cut loose. It took only 10 minutes for Naruto to find his first team, a group from Kurigakure who were moving on the forest floor, trying to stay quiet as they planned on sneaking up on another team. Naruto only smirked as he struck from the shadows, Aka ripped drawn as he struck, taking the head off of 2 of them on the first pass, before turning and sending a wave of poison shuriken into the last nin who couldn't even scream in pain or fear as the poison closed off his windpipe, cutting off all sounds as the poison did its work and killed him. Sighing at how easy it was, Naruto sifted through their gear, taking some of their provisions, and then their scroll, a heaven scroll, which he already had. Shrugging, he sealed it into a smaller scroll and then moved on, targeting the next team. For an hour Naruto went about and killed the stragglers, making sure that he took their scrolls as he did, managing to acquire 3 complete sets and an extra earth scroll now. Having gotten bored of killing weak genin, Naruto made his way towards the tower, where he stopped to see Orochimaru attacking Sasuke and his team. Naruto frowned at what he saw, but watched as Orochimaru played with the boy, while Naruto had been incapacitated, and Sakura shook in fear at Orochimaru. It wasn't long before Sasuke managed to unleash a surprise counterattack that trapped Orochimaru and hit him with powerful blasts of fire, but it was revealed to be Atsuchi Bunshin. Impressive, Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru laughed as he extended his neck and bit into Sasuke, leaving the cursed seal on him. Naruto simply shook his head as Sasuke fell to the ground, suffering from the effects of the new mark on him, while Sakura finally stopped being useless and managed to get Sasuke and Naruto to a shelter that she quickly rigged with traps. Naruto nodded at this and decided to move on, knowing that this was part of Orochimaru's plan and that it was too early to start following his orders just yet. It took him a few hours to reach the tower, and when he did arrive, he found that his clones were waiting for him, and he stopped in front of the mural, quickly reading it and then opening the scrolls at the same time. Having a Chunin appear who told him he had passed the second exam and that he was the first team to do so. Please head for your assigned room and rest there. The Chunin stated as he went to inform Anko and the Hokage that a team had passed already. Naruto only smirked as the Chunin walked off, and he went to his room, planning on resting these next few days, while he waited to see who would survive the forest. By the time the 4 days had passed, Naruto had found that most of the teams had been eliminated, most by him, but several others were either defeated or dead. At the moment there were 6 other teams present, and still a few hours left for any stragglers to arrive. Just as they were admitted to a large arena, Team 7 arrived, looking like the forest had been rough on them. As they entered and lined up, the Jonin instructors arrived for the various teams, with Naruto spotting Konan there, which slightly surprised him that she had left aim for this. It wasn't long before Minato stepped forward and congratulated them for passing the second exam. However, there are far too many of you to move straight into the third and final exam. That is why we will be having a preliminary round. Minato stated, causing several of the genin to protest and question this choice. Let me explain. These exams are held not only to test your abilities, but to show them to prospective clients and dignitaries from other villages. This can help your village grow stronger if you show that the genin from the village are skilled enough. However, we don't want them sitting around for hours or possibly days while you all compete. That is why we will have a preliminary round to cut your numbers down even more. Sir, perhaps I should continue. A Jonin stated as he moved forward. Go ahead, Gekko. Minato nodded as he stepped back. Now these will be single combat matches, unless there are an odd number of you, in which case we will have a 3-way battle for that. Now if there is anyone that wishes to drop out, now is your chance. This will not affect your team. Gekko explained, coughing every now and again. At this point Kabuto raised his hand, as did Naruto's 2 clones. Once Gekko took down their names, the 3 left, and the back wall opened up to reveal a giant screen that was flashing through names until it stopped on 2 of them. The first match is Sasuke Uchiha vs Dosu. All others please move up to the viewing area. Gekko exclaimed. Naruto walked to the left with the Oto Nin, Suna Nin and Kabuto's 2 teammates. Konan soon joined him, and stood beside him, both intent on the matches. Surprised that you're here. Naruto stated, thought you would be busy with other matters. Nagato said that to maintain the illusion of you being a true genin that your sensei should be here. This is only for appearances. Konan replied, now let's see what Itachi's younger brother can do. Naruto only nodded as the match started. Dosu charged forward, revealing a strange gauntlet with holes on it that started emitting such a high-pitched noise that Naruto was the only one that could actually hear it. Ouch. Naruto grumbled at the noise that gauntlet of his is emitting sound. Interesting concept, taking down the opponent's balance. Konan nodded in agreement. Sasuke seemed aware of what the gauntlet did, and it took only a moment before he finished the hand signs and launched his technique. Pain, Kakak no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Sasuke roared as he emitted a massive fireball that Dosu barely dodged, but Naruto saw what Sasuke had actually done, and smirked as Sasuke rushed in, 2 kunai out, one with a flash bomb attached as he threw it, while shielding his eyes. Dosu was caught off guard by this, and when he tried to use the sound to stop Sasuke he realized that the fire hadn't been meant to stop him, it had been meant to take out his weapon. Sasuke soon had his back, and the kunai was to his throat, while Sasuke had his arms trapped behind him. "Winner Sasuke!" Gekko exclaimed as the Uchiha nodded before standing and then wincing as he grabbed his neck. Kakashi acted quickly and grabbed the team before leaving, where Naruto noticed that the Oto-sensei left as well. "So he did mark him," Konan noted. "Yeah. Not much we can do about it." Naruto nodded as the next match was announced. Temari vs Tenten. Gekko shouted as the two girls leapt down. Tenten was a girl from Lee's team, and she was carrying several scrolls with her that Naruto was sure were all full of surprises. The match started, and Tenten tried to defeat her opponent with a barrage of kunai and other thrown weapons, but all Temari did was open her fan, swing it once to create a massive twister that threw Tenten into the ceiling, where Temari stopped the twister and let the dazed girl fall onto her closed fan, taking all the fight right out of the girl. "Winner Temari!" Gekko exclaimed as Temari threw Tenten off her fan, before walking back up to the stands, while the weapons were cleared off the arena floor. "Konan-sensei, I'm going fishing." Naruto smirked as he nodded towards the other side. Konan only nodded as Naruto flickered from sight and reappeared on the other platform. Moving between a few people he stood by Hinata and her team. "Yami-san." Hinata nodded as he stood next to her, while Kurenai looked at the blonde teen. "Friend of yours?" she asked her student. "Just someone we met during the first exam." Kiba replied, "He really annoys Naruto." "Oh really?" Kurenai asked with a smirk at the other blonde, and what exactly did he do to annoy her so much? Stepped into a potential intonation incident. Naruto replied a Sunanin was about to hit the grandson of the late Sandaime Hokage, and Naruto wasn't helping the situation, so I stepped in, and she got mad. Kurenai nodded at this as the next match was announced, Zaku vs Shino Aburam, one of Hinata's teammates. The taller boy walked down the stairs where he faced the wounded Oto-nin, who had both arms broken apparently. "What happened to him?" Kiba asked. "Sasuke did that to him." Sakura replied, "From down the line they tried to attack us, and when Sasuke woke up from his fever he beat them all." Naruto only nodded at her explanation as he watched Zaku manage to move one of his arms and fire a blast of air towards Shino, who disappeared in a cloud of bugs and reappeared behind Zaku, while the insects moved towards the Oto-genin. "Give up. You are finished," Shino stated calmly. "If you move your arm towards me the insects will swarm you, and if you keep it aimed at them, I will attack you." "You know, I think I can manage with this arm," Zaku exclaimed as he lifted his arm from the sling and aimed the arms in two different directions. As he tried to fire the blasts again his arms exploded, and Naruto chuckled as he realized what had happened. "He had his bugs go into those holes, didn't he?" Naruto asked. "Yes." Hinata nodded. "Impressive." Naruto nodded in turn. "Never taken Aburam lightly, huh? Not if you want to live." Kiba chuckled as the medics took Zaku away, and Shino walked back up to his team. The next match was Ino Yamanaka vs Sakura Haruno, and from the way Kiba sighed Naruto guessed that this was going to be bad. Once the pair were down in the arena they both adjusted their headbands to cover their foreheads and created two bunchins, and then sent shuriken at each other. "Hami above, it's like watching academy students." Naruto groaned as he looked at them. "Please tell me all the Kunoichi in this village aren't this pathetic, and it's just these two." "They aren't," Kurenai stated as she glared at him. "Oh thank you," Naruto exclaimed. "I hate weak women." Now Kurenai blinked at that, before refocusing on the match, where it was going at a snail's pace, before Ino apparently decided to cut off her long hair like Sakura had done some time in the forest. They fought for a few more moments before Ino struck, preparing to use her family's technique and send her mind into Sakura's body. As she was about to do this, she poured chakra into her hair and made it hold Sakura still, while she launched her mind. Once in Sakura's body Ino was about to forfeit, when suddenly Sakura took control again, forcing Ino's mind out of her. "Didn't see that coming," Shikamaru stated from where he was leaning on the railing. "Normally she can't be stopped forced out like that. First time for everything I guess." Choji replied as the match reached its final moments where they both charged at each other, slugged the other, and both passed out. "Me, that was pathetic. Can I get those minutes of my life back?" Naruto asked. "Unfortunately no," Hinata replied. "We all want them back." "Agreed." Kiba nodded as Akamaru barked his agreement. Once the two girls were removed from the arena floor the next match was called. Kankuro vs Choji Akamichi. Gekko exclaimed as the two walked down with Kankuro facing Choji with a smug grin. When the match started Choji used his own family technique to increase his size and become a giant rolling tank that charged towards Kankuro. Now Kankuro blinked in shock at this and leapt aside before opening the bundle and revealing a large puppet that he started controlling. As Choji changed directions to run Kankuro over the Sunagen and only had his puppet move forward, extend a blade, and make a small cut on Choji's side as he rolled past. Before Choji knew what had happened, he was back to normal, screaming in pain. "Winner Kankuro!" Gekko exclaimed as the medics ran in and loaded him onto a gurney. "It's Silverthorn poison," Kankuro stated as he walked back up to the stands. The medics nodded at this and soon had Choji out of the arena and towards the hospital, where he could be treated. "The next match is Naruto vs Kiba," Gekko exclaimed as the blonde girl cheered as she leapt down. "Kick her ass," Naruto stated as he patted Kiba's arm. "No problem." Kiba chuckled as he and Akamaru entered the arena, a smug grin on his face. Kiba made the opening move by feeding Akamaru a soldier pill, and then the dog transformed into a feral-looking Kiba. Kiba then imitated the transformation, and the pair struck, spinning and becoming a deadly piercing attack that bounced around the walls and floor, making it very difficult to predict. "The Tuzga!" Kiba roared as they struck. Naruto only laughed as she dodged around the technique, following the flow and moving though the ever-shifting gaps before she struck, just as they stopped. "Hage Bunshin no Jutsu!" she shouted as she created a clone that targeted one of the Kibas while she went for the other. Naruto watched intently as she fought, picking apart her Taijutsu skills and seeing that Kushina and Minato hadn't been lax on her training, and that she was easily as strong as most Chunin, and that these exams were only a formality to get her a promotion. It took only minutes for her to beat both Kiba and Akamaru to a pulp, and they were soon carted out as well. "That sucked," Naruto noted. "I was hoping Kiba would wipe the floor with her." "Not very likely. She's one of the strongest shinobi this year." Kurenai replied. "I'd be shocked if anyone here could best her." "It's still early," Naruto replied. "You haven't seen all the competitors yet, and I know for a fact that the redhead over there will destroy his opponent." Kurenai only looked at the blonde, before turning her gaze to the screen for the next match. "Hinata Hyuga vs Kin," Gekko exclaimed as the two girls walked down, and now Naruto leaned forward, looking forward to seeing how strong these two teams would be. When the match started, Kin threw a senbon with a bell attached to it that Hinata dodged with ease, and then Kin threw another two, one with a bell. One without that. Hinata used a basic Jiken to block them both, before closing the gap and striking several of Kin's Tenketsu points, sealing her chakra and forcing her down. "Winner Hinata!" Gekko shouted as Hinata walked back up, and Naruto nodded to her as the next match was called Niji Hyuga vs Shikamaru. The two teams walked down and faced each other, with Shikamaru already running the fight several moves ahead, while Niji did the same thing and already had an idea of how to deal with Shikamaru. When the match started, Niji had leapt away and took out a flash bomb, triggering it and causing all the shadows in the arena to disappear, as he had closed his eyes and allowed his Byakugan to lead him to a blinded Shikamaru, where he soon was closing all of his Tenketsu points, letting Shikamaru collapse to the ground as the match was ended in a matter of seconds. "That was ruthless," Naruto remarked. "It was like night and day between you two." "Yes, my cousin is very strong," Hinata nodded, slightly worried about having to possibly face her cousin in the next round. The next match was Rock Lee vs Subaku no Gaara, and Naruto knew for a fact that Lee was screwed up the ass. The match started with Lee coming to face Gaara's sand shield that protected him from getting hurt. It wasn't long before Guy gave Lee permission to remove his weights, and when he did, there was a loud boom as they fell to the ground. "Kami, how much do those weigh?" Naruto asked Guy. "As much as needed," Guy replied with a grin. "Lee won't lose easily." "Aha, have you seen this guy he's facing?" Naruto asked as he saw that Lee was now fast enough to get past the shield and was striking Gaara. As he hit the team, Naruto saw sand dropping and realized that he was wearing a layer of sand as armor. It didn't take long for Lee to strike and unleash his technique, Amidari Nge Front Lotus, trapping Gaara in bandages as he slammed the red-headed teen into the ground. However, this proved ineffective as the sand had caught him and cushioned him. Gaara stood up and then sent mass amounts of sand smashing into Lee, as the teen was currently suffering from the after effects of using the technique. "Well, this looks like the end," Naruto replied. "I have to agree with Yami." Kakashi nodded. "Lee did good, but he is taking the after effects of this technique." "No need to worry," Guy replied. "The lotus of the leaf blooms twice." Kakashi blinked in shock as he looked at Guy. "You didn't? That technique is too dangerous for a genin to learn." "I'm disappointed in you. What do you know of that boy?" Guy asked as he looked at Kakashi. Guy gave a short summary of how, even though Lee had no ninjutsu or gained jutsu skills, he still worked harder than anyone he knew, and that by giving him this, he gave Lee the potential to be a splendid shinobi. Naruto nodded at this as he saw Lee getting up and releasing more of the gates to fight against Gaara. Lee soon looked red as he moved so fast that most of the jonin could barely follow him, and Naruto had trouble keeping track of the movements himself. Lee struck, kicking Gaara into the air, where he struck by wrapping the teen in the bandages again, and began hammering the Sunagenin with such force and speed that Gaara's defense couldn't aid him at all. Lee ended the technique with an open palm strike combined with a kick at the same time, smashing Gaara into the ground, leaving a rather large crater. When Lee landed he looked like he could barely stand, and Naruto knew that, by using those gates he had pushed himself far past his limits. Looking into the crater, Naruto saw that it was only Gaara's sand armor inside of the crater, and that a mound of sand was rising with the real Gaara coming out from under it. With a maniacal grin Gaara struck, smashing Lee around before sending tendrils of sand to try and trap Lee. Lee leapt away and only had his right arm and leg caught, and when Gaara closed his hand, crushed. "Winner Gaara!" Gekko shouted as he moved to stop Gaara before he could kill Lee. Gaara was about to fully encase Lee when Guy leapt down and disrupted the sand, glaring at Gaara to make him stop. It took a moment for the sand armor to re-encase Gaara, and once it had he left, heading back up to the stands, where Lee was soon carted off, and Naruto leapt down for the final match, the three-way battle. The final match is the three-way fight between Yami, Yoroi, and Tsurugi. Gekko stated as the three faced each other, with Yoroi and Tsurugi both agreeing to take down Yami first then deal with each other begin. The match was short and decisive as Naruto targeted Yoroi and drew Akarip and cut off one of Yoroi's legs before taking his back, grabbing his head and twisting, so his head was now facing his back. Tsurugi blinked in shock as he saw his teammate killed, and before he could forfeit Naruto had thrown Akarip, and it had pinned him to the wall, as Naruto moved right in front of him, grabbed his arms and ripped them off, and then cut his head off. All of this happened in the span of less than 20 seconds, faster than Gekko could stop the match, and stop him from killing the pair. Kankuro whistled as he saw how quickly the blonde with the strange eyes had killed the two other plants. Gaara was staring intently at the blood-soaked blonde and promised the voice whispering to him that it would get its chance to kill this foe. "Winner Yami," Gekko stated as the medics came in and removed the two bodies. "Now would the winners please come down here so we can explain what the next round will entail." It took a few moments for all 9 of them to line up, and once they did Minato stepped forward to explain the next round. Now the finals will take place in 1 month, giving the dignitaries time to arrive and see the matches. You will be seeing who you are up against in a few moments. The matches will be just like these were, with hopefully less death. Minato paused to give Yami a look that the blonde only smirked at. Now here is the lineup. The first match is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze vs Yami. Second is Hinata Hyuga vs Niji Hyuga. Third is Shino Aburam vs Kankuro. Fourth is Subaku no Gaara vs Sasuke Uchiha. Temari will then face the winner of that match. You have 1 month to train and prepare for the matches ahead. I wish you all the best of luck. But that the genin all began to leave, but Minato stopped Naruto to have a word with him. I want you to know that I do not approve of needless killing. Minato stated, I do not want to see good shinobi dying pointless deaths. They stood against me, they received their fate. Naruto replied, any that think to oppose me shall perish. Just know this, I am giving the Anbu at the arena next month permission to use deadly force if you do not stop when the proctor calls the match against you and Subaku no Gaara. Minato warned I will be informing him of this as well. So noted. Naruto replied as he turned and left. I'm looking forward to making your daughter bleed in front of your whole village. Minato had to resist the urge to destroy this threat to his daughter, and once he calmed down enough he left the forest, praying that things didn't turn out as badly as he feared. Naruto was soon out of the forest, walking back into the village as Konan said her goodbye and returned to aim. As Naruto walked he decided to take a soak and made his way towards the hot springs. As he approached he saw an older man peeking into the woman's side of the spring. Shaking his head he walked up towards the man and spoke. This is a quick way to get yourself killed, he noted. SHHH. The man hissed, I'm doing research. Research? Naruto deadpanned. Yes, research. He retorted, I need the inspiration from my books. What on earth do you write, Icha? Naruto asked, shaking his head. How do you know? He asked in shock. Now Naruto blinked in shock as he really looked at the man and finally recognized his godfather, the one person from the village that had ever taken notice of him. Just a guess. Pleasure to meet you, Jiraiya. Naruto nodded as he turned to walk away before Jiraiya grabbed his arm and stopped him. Do I know you? He asked with a frown. You seem familiar. Just a coincidence, I guess. Naruto replied. Is that so? Jiraiya replied as he ran a cursory gaze over the blonde and started piecing together details. Well, care to explain where you got that sword? I found it, Naruto replied. Where? Does it matter? Yes, since it belongs to my former student's wife, Jiraiya stated, and given the fact that the blade was stolen, you are either the thief or you picked it up off a dead body. Would it matter either way? Naruto asked with a smirk. The Hokage has already seen me use this blade and hasn't said a word about it. That's so, Jiraiya nodded as he stared at the blonde. Well, you weren't noticed then, Naruto. Naruto blinked and soon had a kunai out and at Jiraiya's throat. How did you know? I guessed. Jiraiya chuckled. Now are you going to kill me or not? Naruto glared at him, but in the end he took a step back and decided to see how things would play out. So are you going to tell the village? Why? You were able to get away with not only your mother's sword, but your father's precious scroll without anyone noticing for over 24 hours. You seem to have found a new home for yourself and aim, so I'm content to let you be where you're happy. Jiraiya replied. I see why Konan-sensei and Nagato-sensei speak so highly of you. Naruto chuckled. You're getting trained by Konan and Nagato. Jiraiya exclaimed. Yeah, and a few other people. Naruto replied, look, I need to take a soak. Why don't you take a break from peeping and join me? We can talk there. Fine. Jiraiya nodded as he closed the notepad and stood up, walking in with a blonde. Soon the pair were in the hot water and discussing a few things. So what about Yahiko? Jiraiya asked. He died. Hanzo killed him before they accomplished the takeover. Naruto replied, at least that's what Konan-sensei told me. I see. It's a shame that he died. He was a good kid, they all were. So you became a shinobi over in AIM, huh? Yeah. After I ran away I made my way kind of randomly and wound up in AIM. Konan-sensei found me and took me in. They agreed to train me when I explained to them why I had left. They both agreed to train me. That's good. So why are you here? In truth, 2 reasons. First is for the exams. I wanted to test myself against people my own age. The second is because we owed a favor to Orochimaru. Orochimaru, Jiraiya exclaimed. Yeah. At my request he did some experiments on me, that's the reason why my eyes are like this, and he called in his last favor with us to get me to help him. Naruto explained, but I have my own plans for this, hence the reason I'm telling you all this. What's he planning? Jiraiya asked. An invasion with Suna helping him. They plan on attacking during the finals in 1 month, with the signal being Gaara turning into Shukaku. Naruto explained. I see, Jiraiya nodded. What else can you tell me? He plans on killing the Hokage and destroying the village. He has plenty of forces, and with a crazed demon attacking alongside the snake summons, he has the potential to do it. Naruto stated, however, I plan on throwing a few problems in his way. How so? First, telling you all of this. Naruto smirked. Second is to deal with Gaara. You realize that I will have to tell Minato all about this. Jiraiya pointed out. That's fine. Just keep me out of it. Naruto replied, just say that your informants gave it to you. Deal? Jiraiya nodded. Now how about I help you with something? What? The Rasengan. Jiraiya replied as Naruto's eyes widened. I can teach it to you if you like. Are you kidding? Of course I want to learn it. Naruto exclaimed. Jiraiya smiled at this and soon they left, and Jiraiya bought the supplies needed to teach the blonde the technique. The first step was to make a water balloon pop using your chakra. Naruto observed Jiraiya do it first with careful interest, and once it was his turn, he remembered how Jiraiya had made the balloon look and replicated it, sending his chakra in multiple directions inside of the balloon, and then picking up the speed until it burst. Not bad. Now here's the next part. Jiraiya nodded as he tossed him a rubber ball. This step is all about power now that you have the form. Naruto nodded as he started, doing the same thing, and then after a good 30 minutes managed to get a hole to pop the ball. A good try, but not nearly enough. Jiraiya replied, you need to make it explode like the water balloon. Naruto grunted as he tried again with a new ball, and quickly realized that this was going to be tricky as he went through another 10 balls. Finally he just doubled the amount of chakra he was circulating and the ball burst. Impressive. Jiraiya nodded. You're learning this faster than Naruto did. Took her a few days to get this far. Yes, we know who the real prodigy is now. Naruto chuckled darkly. Don't get cocky. Here's the last step. Jiraiya replied as he handed him a regular balloon. Now all you have to is repeat what you did on the last step, but not make the balloon pop. It's all about control. Control? Naruto asked with a frown. Here, let me show you. Jiraiya shrugged as he walked over to a nearby tree. This is where you are currently at. He paused to make a Rasengan in his hand. You have the form, and the power for it down, but not the control. Jiraiya then rammed a sphere into the tree, creating a massive swirl on the bark. It's a good stun technique that can send a person flying backwards, but there isn't any real harm done to them. This is what the finished product is like. Jiraiya then made another Rasengan and rammed this one into the tree, shredding the bark and into the underlying wood. This one can be lethal if used correctly. It's why this is an air rank ninjutsu. Naruto nodded at Jiraiya's explanation, and then picked up the balloon, and attempted to make the balloon stay stationary, but after only 2 seconds it became lumpy, and then popped with a large burst of wind. Scowling, Naruto picked up the next balloon and tried again with only a second increase before it happened again. This continued for several hours, which Jiraiya at this point had already walked off to do some more research while he still could. By the time the old pervert had returned, Naruto was barely able to keep the sphere from popping. Not too bad, Gaki, but I'd call it quits for today. Get some rest and eat something and pick it up again tomorrow. You've already used a ton of chakra. Jiraiya advised. You might be right. Naruto panted as he set the balloon down, but I'm getting the hang of it. But you are. Conan and Nagato have taught you well. Jiraiya nodded here. He then handed Naruto several bills. Go get dinner and meet me here tomorrow. I'm going to go inform Minato about the pending invasion, could give us a chance to counteract the worst case scenario. Sounds good. Naruto nodded as he walked off, soon entering downtown portion and making his way to a ramen stand. As he started eating, he made sure that the Kage Bunshin that he had shadowing him stayed nearby, just in case someone tried anything against him, so he could trade places with the clone and then strike the person from behind. Once he was done, he made his way towards the hotel, where all the foreign teams were staying, when he spotted Dosu and Kin leaving the hospital where Zaku would be. Dosu, Kin. Naruto nodded as he walked past them. Yami, may we speak to you for a moment? Dosu asked. Naruto paused before nodding and motioning for them to keep walking. What is it? Naruto asked. Orochimaru set us up. Kin hissed with an edge to her voice. We were sent to kill Sasuke in the forest, but Orochimaru had marked him with the cursed seal, just like his personal guards. So you think that you were being used as mere test subjects? Naruto summarized. We know it. Dosu replied. He expected us to die in these exams, but we have surprised him. Now the problem is he will be wanting to use us for some new experiment, like he will be doing to Zaku. We were too late to get him. Too late? Naruto asked. Orochimaru already came by as our Jonin instructor and took him out, saying he would take him to Odo for treatment. Kin explained. Odds are he'll be coming for us next. I see. And you came to me because, Naruto trailed off. Don't play stupid. We know that you're the foreign operative that Orochimaru called in a favor to get. We know that you are strong, hopefully strong enough to beat him in a fight. Dosu retorted. We need your help. And if I do, what's in it for me? Naruto smirked. What do you want? Kin asked hesitantly. Your loyalty. Swear your fealty to me, and place an appropriate seal over your hearts that will kill you if you try to betray me, and I will aid you. Naruto stated calmly. Do this and I will hide you from the snake and make sure that you grow strong enough to serve me properly. Agreed. Dosu nodded. Fine. Kin agreed. Excellent. Come with me and I will place the seals on you. Then I will give you the aid that you need. Naruto replied as he led them to his hotel room where he had them take off their shirts, Kin having a slight blush as she did, though Naruto was kind enough to have Dosu leave before he started hers. Once finished, he had a specialized kill seal on both of them, ensuring their loyalty. Naruto then took blood from each of them and started the jutsu that Zetsu had shown him. Once he finished, he created 2 copies of the 2 former Odonin, copies that would leave behind corpses should they be killed, but lack souls, making them nothing more than dolls. These will take your place. Orochimaru expected you to die, but on the off chance that you didn't, he would have ordered you to wait in your room. Now you will both stay here while I send these 2 to your room to wait for Orochimaru. Naruto explained as he finished making 2 seals that he placed on the back of each one's head and nodded as it was absorbed. Won't he know the difference? Dosu asked. Nope. This is a technique that only one other person knows how to use, and this is a bastardized version of it. His version is much more durable and combat appropriate. Mine is just good enough to fool assassins and others that a target is actually dead. Naruto shrugged. The seals I put on them are basic instructions, to tell them to move and do what Orochimaru says, but they have limited chakra and won't be able to last longer than 72 hours before they die. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on them until Orochimaru does the deed. The 2 exchanged looks as they saw the 2 copies leave and Naruto create a Kage Bunshin to go with them and make sure that they stayed functioning. The next day, Naruto met up with Jiraiya again and continued working on the Rasengan while talking with Jiraiya about a few different things. So you're telling me that not only do you get paid for those books, but you also get movie rights? Naruto asked, completely shocked that the smut paid that well. Yep. It pays so well that I could stay in the nicest hotels, eat the finest foods. Hire the youngest whores. Naruto added with a smirk. Who needs whores? I am the legendary Jiraiya. Women fall to me like sakura blossoms in a storm. Or like run from you? Naruto retorted with a laugh. Hey Gaki, notice anything? Jiraiya asked. Naruto blinked as he looked at the balloon and noticed that it was perfectly smooth. I did it, Naruto blinked. Yep. Figured your problem was that you were trying too hard, so I distracted you, while your body did the rest. Jiraiya explained. Memorize that feeling, it's the completed Rasengan. Or at least the furthest completed form of it. Completed form? Naruto asked. Yeah. Minato is still tinkering with it. Says that he wants to add an elemental release to it as well, make it into an S-rank technique. Jiraiya explained. Personally, I think he's biting off more than he can chew. The technique is already deadly enough as it is, and adding in another high-level step could be impossible, especially combining the peak of chakra manipulation with the peak of elemental manipulation. Naruto nodded at this and filed the information away for further use. Jiraiya soon said his farewells and went off to help make plans for the village's defense, letting Naruto begin his wandering around the training grounds, where he soon found Hinata training, trying to complete a technique. Naruto observed her for a few moments when suddenly Hinata spoke. "You can come out now, Yami-san," she stated. Chuckling to himself, the blonde walked out of the tree line and nodded to her. "Those are some good eyes you have," he smirked. "I noticed you moving closer a while ago and decided to see what you planned on doing," Hinata replied. "Just seeing how your training is going." Naruto shrugged. "Looks like you're having some trouble." "A little," Hinata admitted. "I am trying to complete a technique that's only passed down verbally through my family, but I just can't get it." "Well, perhaps a spar will point you in the right direction," Naruto offered as he set his sword aside and faced her. "Show me what you can do." Hinata stared at him before entering her own fighting stance and moved in, trying to use the Jaiken to strike him. Naruto, however, was far faster than her and easily dodged her attacks by the smallest of margins, using light strikes to hit the gaps that she left open. They continued for a few minutes before Hinata stopped and leapt back before he could hit her. "You're going easy on me," she frowned. "No, I'm not. I'm fighting at Niji's level," Naruto retorted. "You weren't even able to make one blow against me, and I was able to make several against you. You leave yourself too open when you take the offensive." "Then what should I do, run?" Hinata asked. "No. Fight defensively," Naruto replied as he walked back in front of her. "Let's go again. This time don't make the attacks, just counter mine." Hinata nodded as they started again, and found that this time, when Naruto took the offensive like Niji would likely do, Hinata was able to track his blows and use her own Jaiken to strike his arms and avoiding the worst of any possible blows. This time it was Naruto that stopped the match as he leaned back to avoid a strike and then took a step back to show that they were done. "That was better," Naruto nodded. "But against Niji that isn't enough. What's holding you back?" "Nothing is," Hinata replied calmly. Naruto only frowned as he turned and picked up his blade before beginning to leave. "If you say so. But while my eyes may not be as special as yours, they can see plenty that yours can't. I can see that you are holding yourself back and that you are scared of facing Niji," Naruto stated as he walked off, leaving Hinata to think on his remark. Once he was out of sight, he created a Kage Bunshin and had it shadow Hinata for the rest of the day, wanting to learn what it was that caused a potentially powerful shinobi to hold back so much. At night, as he sat in his room with Dosu and Kin already asleep, the clone disappeared and the memories arrived. The clone had followed Hinata home, where it had snuck into the compound and had watched as Hinata's father made her spar against her young sister, who attacked her mercilessly, while Hinata chose not to strike her younger sibling. After the match was over, her father berated her pathetic performance and told her that, if she were to lose to Niji in the finals, that she would no longer be the heiress for the clan and that she would be placed into the branch family. The clone had watched for a while longer, and once it had seen enough it dispelled itself, and now Naruto knew exactly the right buttons to push. The next morning, Naruto stood on the roof of the hotel, watching the storm clouds roll in, and smiled at them. As he stood there, he sensed the presence of another person arrive. "Naruto," Orochimaru remarked from behind him. "Orochimaru," Naruto nodded. "What do you want?" "I came to inform you that the Odonin have been collected, and to thank you for tying up those loose ends with Kabuto's team." Orochimaru nodded. "Not a problem," Naruto replied. "They thought they could beat me." Orochimaru chuckled at that as he walked to stand beside Naruto. "Everything is moving accordingly." "Good to know." Naruto nodded. "And I finally get to put my mouthy sister in her place. It's going to be a day to remember." "Feel free to kill her." Orochimaru grinned. "No sense in leaving the demon in a container that could be a threat later." I might not. We will see," Naruto replied with a shrug as he faced Orochimaru. "Anything else?" "No, that is all. I will be going to deal with the Kazekage, so you will be on your own here until the invasion," Orochimaru explained. "Noted." Naruto nodded as he walked away. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have things to do." "Of course." Orochimaru nodded as he left in a swirl of leaves. Naruto made his way back to his room and found Kin and Dosu still there, looking at him. "You're safe for now," Naruto stated. "Orochimaru has left to work on the next step to his plan." "That's a relief," Kin sighed. "Tomorrow you will be leaving, you know where you have to go. Once I am able to, I will send a clone to meet you and give you the scrolls and items I want you to start learning how to use." Naruto explained. "So lay low for today, and when you leave make sure that you use a hinge to slip past the guards, especially since Kabuto is still around." "Of course." Dosu nodded as Naruto turned and left, soon arriving at the training ground, where Hinata was training again, practicing her Jaiken on a log. Naruto waited a moment before speaking. "You're afraid," he stated, causing Hinata to turn and stare at him. "You fear hurting your family, but you also fear being hurt in turn. You're afraid of having that cursed seal placed on you, but you are also afraid of it being placed on your sister." Your fear bleeds from you, permeating the very air around you. You will never beat Neji, or any true shinobi the way you are. What are you talking about? Hinata asked. Your fear is what hinders you. Your fear is what has stopped you from growing and being strong. Naruto replied calmly as he walked closer. When you strike it says I'm afraid of hurting you, when you dodge it's I'm afraid of being hurt. Even when you protect someone it says I'm afraid of them being hurt. You must abandon this fear if you wish to survive. Hinata tried to speak, but Naruto just kept on going. You do not want your sister to be hurt, but you do not want to be hurt in turn. There is no safe path in life. Someone must be hurt in order for others to live. It is the simple fact of all life. The weak become food for the strong, but you try to change that with your cowardice. That is simply becoming weak. Rise up, Hinata, face that fear of yours, strike down your enemies, do not let them strike you, do not let those you care for be hurt. Abandon that fear, and replace it with your rage. How dare they try to hurt you, how dare they try to hurt your precious people. Let your rage out, let it roar to the heavens. Naruto roared. Hinata blinked in confusion as she felt Naruto's words strike her in her core, and knew that he was speaking the truth, but she didn't want to hurt Hanabi or Neji. But she didn't want to be hurt by her family. Hinata tried to find a way, to not have to face his words, but his eyes had captured hers and she knew that running wouldn't help her. As she stared into those demonic eyes she could see her own pain and fear reflected in them, see how weak she looked right now. She hated it. She hated that she looked so pathetic in his eyes, hated that she knew this was how her family saw her. She could feel the anger, feel the rage at how she had acted rising up. In a wordless howl Hinata screamed, just as the storm broke. Naruto only smiled as he finally broke her, his plan going so smoothly. Stepping right in front of her, he placed a hand on her shoulder, and kept his gaze locked with hers. Be strong. Do not let those that would hinder you stop you. Do not let your fear rise up again. To be scared is fine, but never let it control you. Face your fears. If you do not want to be trapped in the same way Neji is, rise up and defeat him. Show that you are stronger than him, than your sister. Show your fangs and rip out the throats of those that would harm you. Naruto said become a Shinigami if you must, but never let yourself become weak. Hinata stared at him and felt that she really did know him from somewhere, but right now his words pounded into her head and she saw the truth in them, could see that he had gone down a very similar path and was trying to make sure that she did as well. To set her free and to become a more powerful person. Tears started to form in her eyes, and when they dripped down they were lost in the deluge that had struck them. I'm scared, she whispered. Don't let it control you, he said. I don't know if this is right. We never do. What if I hurt someone I love? If they would seek to hinder you then they do not love you, Naruto replied calmly. But, do not be timid. Be a predator. Be strong and fierce. Be a being that fears no one. Naruto hissed be the true Hinata Hyuga. Hinata stared at him, and could feel the pure strength radiating from him, drew it into herself and she realized that she wanted to be like this man, to be strong and confident, to be free of the shackles that her family had placed on her, that her fear had placed on her. She wanted to be able to be a strong shinobi, to not be held back by anything. Show me. Naruto growled, show me how strong you really are. Hinata didn't even know what she was doing when she struck, trying so desperately to hit this man who seemed to egg her on. Naruto moved around her blows, and sent his own in return, but Hinata would let nothing strike her as her arms moved on their own, all hesitation gone from her as she blocked and countered his every move, while he dodged around her strikes, keeping his movements to those of the average Chunin, and showing her that she could be a powerful woman. The pair were locked in this intricate dance for nearly 15 minutes, the rain still pouring and lightning flashing as they did, but finally they stopped, facing each other as Hinata started to laugh. This is what it's like to be strong. She laughed. This is only the tip of the iceberg, my dear Hinata-chan. Naruto chuckled, but this is the first step. What do I have to do to take the rest? She asked with a grin. Be patient. Naruto replied, the next step is to defeat Neji. After that we will talk about what you can do to become the true shinobi you were meant to be. Hinata only nodded as Naruto turned and started to leave, train hard, grow stronger and stronger. Rise up to my level and stand beside me if you can, or fail and fall back to depths of despair you have crawled from. The choice is yours, but I do not want the weak to stand beside me. Hinata only nodded at his words and started for home, intent on meeting his expectations, this man who would push her to be more than she thought that she could be. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.